He's the popular Peter King, NBCSports.com, NFL columnist, Football Morning in America, back from a lengthy vacation and ready to dive into all the topics here today. Good morning, Pete. How confident are you this season is going to start on time?
I think the season is likely to start on time, Dan. The question is, will it finish? And will it play without being interrupted? And, I think one of the biggest issues the NFL faces is, even though they're going to lead the world in contact tracing. Dan, I had a tour of the Minnesota Vikings facility on Friday, and it was totally fascinating. I could tell you 40 stories, but one of them I thought was really interesting. After you take your COVID test, after you get your temperature taken, after you fill out your form on your phone that says you're not warm, you haven't been out of the country or anything like that, you are going to be given basically a little fob. And that fob you're going to wear all day. You can wear it on your wrist, you could wear it in your pads, you can put it in your pocket. And that little fob is basically going to be the physical distancing measuring device that anybody else you come in contact with that day, who also is going to have a fob, they're going to know, hey, you're within 2 feet of Kirk Cousins now. So if you do test positive, then they know that they have to also check out Kirk Cousins to make sure he doesn't have it. But the big question is, so what happens if you go through a day? There's not going to be instant testing, Dan. What happens if you go through a day and you go through a practice and, you have your hands on, you're a center, you have your hands on defensive guys, you're in a huddle, you're around a lot of players. So what's the NFL going to do then? That is going to be a huge issue as to whether the season can be played in its entirety, and in some week, whether some team doesn't get 6 positive tests on the offensive line.
What you were talking about, is that just a Viking-only procedure? Or
no, all 32 teams are going to – this is going to be uniform with all 32 teams. Every one of the every one of the players on the team and every one of 100 team officials who are going to be in contact, like coaching staff, trainers, equipment people, the GM, every one of those 100 people who can be in contact with the players, they're all going to wear these fobs during the day, so they'll have them on them at all times.
You had a orchestrated players' Twitter attack yesterday on the NFL with their safety guidelines, but judging from what you're telling me, I mean, these are pretty good safety precautions, advanced safety precautions. What are the players complaining the most about here?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. The players, Richard Sherman told me stridently over the weekend that they want to have daily testing. And Dan, it's a very simple reason. At first I said, daily testing, man, that's too much. Here is the issue with not testing daily. You're not going to get instant results with your tests. So let's say that you're tested 3 times a week. You're tested Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. And you could pick any days, okay? But let's say you're tested 3 times a week. And let's say on Wednesday you test, okay? You're going to go through your day, most likely, without having any idea whether you've tested positive or negative. So now, you might get the results back on Thursday, okay? But you've already had that period on Wednesday where you're around your team. And now, because Thursday and Friday, there's no testing, how do your teammates, people who've been around you, maybe been in the huddle with you, they're not getting tested till Saturday? I mean, if 9 of them test positive on Saturday, you might not have a game on Sunday. So I think players definitively want to have testing daily. And I don't know if the NFL is going to agree to that. I think that they might agree to it for a period of time, but I don't know if they're going to agree to it for a full season.
He's Peter King, and his column is Football Morning in America, released earlier today. Is the NFL planning on having fans?
I think if they can, Dan, but I think it'd be foolish now to think you can have fans in a place like Tampa or Miami or Arizona. I think it's going to be a case by case basis. And I do think that some teams at some point this year are going to admit fans, socially distanced, and having the stadium experience being totally different, not being allowed to tailgate, things like that. But yeah, at some point this year, I do think some teams will allow a percentage of their stadium to take on fans.
So you think this will be almost like state by state with governors? This is going to be team by team, that the commissioner is going to let you decide if you're going to have
Probably.
Okay.
I think probably because, look, it seems kind of totally unfair. Let's just say that if in the state of Wisconsin, you're doing great on testing and you've gone, 17 days without a death due to coronavirus in Wisconsin, and your schools are open and everything, why do the Packers have to play with no fans there? Just because there's a big outbreak in Houston, the Packers can't play with fans?
Yeah.
Dan, I wrote this a few months ago. I said, everybody who's connected in any way with the NFL needs to get ready for a season of inconvenience and, quite frankly, unfairness. Okay. Now, if a situation like with the Blue Jays happened, where a team couldn't play at home, the NFL's not canceling the season. Baseball's not canceling the season. They're telling the Blue Jays, find a place to play. So maybe they'll play in Buffalo, maybe they'll play in Dunedin, maybe they'll play in some other team's stadium. I don't know. The point to make is that these are unusual times. And I don't think you can have a one-size-fits-all rule on things like fans.
I think it's just a coincidence, but I'm a little suspicious that you went on vacation and didn't have to deal with the Dak Prescott contract negotiations.
Thank God.
The most talked about NFL story in decades here. And here we are with a franchise tag. And we always want to look at who won and who lost, and I don't know what to think anymore about this situation here. Does Jerry like Dak but not love Dak? Did Dak overplay his hand? So now that you have come back to join us here, what do you take away from this Dak Prescott situation in Dallas?
The Cowboys blew it. The Cowboys should have signed Dak Prescott to a long-term contract a year and a half ago. And Dan, I want you to look at the history of quarterback negotiations. When has the price for a quarterback ever gone down? The Dallas Cowboys blew a chance to get Dak Prescott at his cheapest, last offseason. Yeah. And they're going to pay the price for it. Now, the real big question, I didn't write about this today because I only had 13,000 words. But the real big question to me about the Dak Prescott thing is what happens next year if the salary cap, if the NFL forces all the teams in the league to take their medicine on the cap next year and the cap goes down to 125, let's say. The Cowboys might have to just say, we got to cut bait with Dak. We got to field a team. We can't cut 15 players who are all making significant money. So they might have to get rid of him after this year. Now, I don't think they will, but this is why, and I said it at the time, and I've read everybody saying, oh my God, don't sign a 12-year contract or whatever. But to me, Patrick Mahomes, there was a little bit of Tom Brady in what Patrick Mahomes did, in that he gave the Kansas City Chiefs the advantage of the next 2 years, keeping the core intact by having a $5 million cap number this year and a $24 million or whatever it is next year. What he has done, rather than be the pig at the trough, and take a huge amount of money this year, next year, early on in the contract, he'll get paid in a big way later. The Kansas City Chiefs are not cutting Patrick Mahomes. And so basically, the Chiefs, I think, did a very smart thing. For the first 7 years of his contract, it averages about $36 million. And you say, oh my God, that's a lot of money. No, it isn't.
Mm-mm.
It's very reasonable for the best player in football. And that's a good contract for Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, and a good contract for the Chiefs.
Any response from the NFL on the Washington Post story?
Well, the NFL basically is going to let the investigation by the Washington law firm take place and then react to it. Dan Snyder's got to go, period. There's no way he should be an NFL owner.
But how does that happen, though, Peter?
It's not going to happen. In my opinion, Dan Snyder's got to go. He has to go. And, that wasn't 2 or 3 instances of sexual harassment. That was 17. And, that plus, how about, this really galled me. Okay. I wrote about it today. How about in his release, in the organization's release, when they say, we're going to look into, the team nickname, we're going to look into it. So the only word in that release that was used more than the word "the" was Redskins.
Yeah.
And that is a guy who's saying, okay, I know I got to change the name, but up yours. I mean, it's time for him to go. He's got to go.
But also,
and
Peter,
he hasn't done a Donald Sterling thing, so he probably won't go.
But if you go back to that memo, he started with sponsors. Like he wanted to reach out to the sponsors, community, and fans, like in that order. So that this was about the bottom line with money. I'm losing sponsors. Don't want to lose them. The heck with the community and the fans.
Nike and FedEx forced Dan Snyder to transfer to the right side of history. And I would bet you give him sodium pentothal right now and you ask him, do you want to change the name? He doesn't want to change the name.
No.
Come on.
No.
And so, he just, Dan Snyder is a bad owner who, unfortunately, I remember, as I wrote today, I remember when this team was relevant and this team was fun and RFK Stadium rocked and shook when they had a competent ownership and management team. Jack Kent Cooke was a weird guy, but he was a competent owner. And now they don't have one. And if you don't have a competent owner in the NFL, you are in trouble. And that's why I'm exaggerating. My heart goes out to COVID patients, but my heart sort of goes out to Washington fans too, because their owner stinks.
How can the NFL get him out of there? Who has the power to say to Dan Snyder, you must sell?
They don't.
Okay.
I don't see how you get him out. He has the ability to stay as the owner of this team, unless he does something either illegal or whatever. Now, maybe the investigation of his organization is going to find other wrongdoing. I don't know.
But you had Adam Silver who got rid of Donald Sterling.
He got rid of Donald Sterling, but is Donald Sterling? Has Daniel Snyder done a Donald Sterling? He was at the helm of a place that had 17 cases of accused sexual harassment inside his organization. Okay, so the question is that enough to wrest control of a franchise?
Well, Jerry Richardson with the Panthers, is that similar?
Well, with the Panthers, it is similar for sure. But, Daniel Snyder didn't do personally what Jerry Richardson did. That's the issue.
Good to talk to you, Pete. Glad you're back. Ready to go.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Really appreciate it.
That's Peter King, NBCSports.com, Football Morning in America.